Hey guys, this is part one of the Group 5 screencast on Chapter 17, A New South, Economic Progress and Social Tradition from 1877 to 1900s. Here you have the New South. Um, this is after the Civil War where you have the turmoil of Reconstruction. The Southerners worked to rebuild their stricken region with the testimony and ability to rise from the ashes in a way of economic independence from the former Civil War enemies. What the Southerners did was that they built the railroads and factories and then moved to towns and cities. This brought political and social turmoil, encouraging women to work outside of the home and then pursue public careers. While this, in a way, frightened the white men because they would take away their job opportunities and decreasing their chances.
As Tommy has said, that this was a time of political turmoil. After the Civil War, the majority rule in the South was the Republicans. However, by the 1900s, a period of white Democratic Party rule came into play and lasted until the 1950s, which is known as the Solid South.
And then, industrial and urban South. At first, the Southerners manufactured with very little, where they only made up 10% of the national totals in 1877, but then it gets better. All of it changed by the 1900s, where the boasting growth in iron, steel industry, textile mills, and oil-dominant tobacco industry. Timber processing industry that made furniture, and lastly, the famous soft drink Coca-Cola.
As steel mills and textiles started popping up all over the southern country, southern textile industries experienced significant growth, especially during the 1880s, where they began to manufacture cotton products since the early decades of the 19th century, decreasing unemployment rates and keeping the industry large.
And then you have the railroads and growth. The Southern Railroad construction boomed in the 1800s. It's where they constructed railroads and it linked from region to region. What this provided was a quick and direct access for Southern products to be traded and sold to markets in the booming Northeast. This provided a variety of products where it goes from fertilizers to fashion. And then the railroad opened up to new areas in the South, areas that were rural and connecting places that were to urban, and the economy developed even more.
As railroads began to expand all over the South, as Tommy has mentioned, the Northeast Railways and the Southern Railways connected, and therefore connecting the North and the South together, booming up the economy. Northern manufacturing products that were not manufactured in the South, were transported to the South, and Southern cotton, which was still a big part of their economy, was transferred to the North.
Limits of industrial and urban growth. Even though that the South was booming really, really hard for the economy, but then the thing was that the North was still ahead of the South. There was an increase in the economy in the South, but then the North was still ahead. And then you have a weak agricultural economy and a high rural birth rate, depressed wages in the South, so people weren't getting paid as much as they anticipated. So poorly paid workers couldn't buy as much as they wished, which limits supply and demand. With the limiting on supply and demand, the market would be limited, and thus the economy would not thrive as hard as it would. And despite the growing links of the national economy, the South remained regional apart, showing the limited capital. Then you have the risk of investment in the South due to the competition versus the North economy. And as a result, the investors from the North purchased the big businesses from the South for bargain. With this, they took advantage of how cheap it was, and then the North firm would own 5 major southern rails.
In the southern economy, low wages were given to workers, and therefore, the poorly paid workers did not consume much of manufactured products, thus limiting the market for southern manufactured goods. They also could not provide much tax revenue, which restricted the southern state's ability to fund education and provide advanced medical services to many places in the South.
The Southern Agrarian Revolt, where you have the cash crop like rice, tobacco, and cotton, benefited the marketing. But with the mass production of cotton that occurred with the surplus and the value, this makes the value of cotton decrease because it can be found everywhere. Well, a simple solution to the problem would be that you grow less cotton, but then with the heavy dependency on cotton, this was impossible. If you grew less, there will be less to sell, and then so there will be less profit for people. In the cash poor economy, credit ruled. Here you have quote 5 cents cotton, 40 cents meat. How in the world can a poor man eat? This shows that cotton would be sold for a very low value, and then you have meat costing a lot. So how can a poor man eat? So circumstances deteriorated as South farmers fought back.
And farmers also began to form alliances, which provided their members with discounts on supplies and benefiting their sales and credit. Although southern farmers fought to keep their farmers alive, many farms still went bankrupt, thus closing many farms in the South.
And then black farmers formed the first Colored Farmers Alliance, where they had fewer landowners and more tenants and sharecroppers in its rank than the white organization. They attempted to raise concern for higher wages to get more money and with the strikes, but they were unable to enforce it, making it worsening the southern economy. McCune proposed a sub-treasury plan where the farmers would store cotton in the warehouse, keeping it off the market until the press rose. This was an excellent plan where they will hold off on the supply so the demand will rise. And then the government will also loan the farmers up to 80% of the value of the stored crops at a low interest rate of 2% per year. If you think about it, 2% is actually pretty low for them. And finally, the desperate alliance leaders merged their organization to create the Populist Party.
And thus concluded part 1 of chapter 17 screencast.